We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkie. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. Trevor and I are back. We're feeling Thanksgiving. Yesterday, Trevor stopped by my house last night. It's funny, my mom was there. He looks at her and he goes, "So what do you think Gabe does for a living?" She's like, "Well, obviously he does real estate." And Trevor says, "Well, what does that mean?" And she says, "Well, I was a broker and I sold houses." And Trevor goes, "I know, but what does Gabe do?" And I don't know that she could answer the question.
I don't think she
answer
knew.
the question?
No, not even close. I was like, how does he take money and put it in his pocket and buy this house? Like, how does he get money? And
you said something about buying real estate and selling real estate, and you said, "Oh, does he do it all for himself?" She said, "No, of course not."
I don't think she knew you owned buildings, really.
Or businesses or anything. Yeah. But it's hard to understand.
No, it's something interesting too. As you talk to more people, did you see that thing I posted? I was like, "Here's a promissory note where we borrowed $982,000."
No, I didn't see it.
So I was writing a promissory note for us on a deal we're doing, and I just posted it online because I was like, "This is interesting to me." I was like, "Here's whatever $900,000 we're borrowing at 3% for 7 years." Most people don't ask, like, how. If I saw that, I'd be like, "How'd you do that? How did you do that?" Yeah. There's a few people who ask how you did. Jude. Yeah. Michael Hamilton, all the dudes who would actually know how to do it, or is interesting enough, are the ones who ask. Yeah. And then everyone else is just like, "That's really cool." Or like, "That's," I'm like,
"Good for you."
Yeah. And I'm like, "That's not the," I was like, so it's interesting to see like the type of person who asks the question about it. And then a few people asked, and I was like, "This is exactly how I did it."
Well, the old adage is the what is it? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Like you can't, they're not ready for the lesson yet.
Yeah, because some people like, they're like, "That's cool," and no one asks, like, "How did you do that?" Like, how did you do? Like, when I sit at Thanksgiving with my family, they're like, "Oh, is that stuff going good?" They're not like, "Wait, you guys are doing a $13 million deal. You're 20 whatever. I'm 40 something, and you're gonna own this $18 million asset, and I'm not." Like, how did you do that? And no one asks.
I'm not interested. It's fine.
But that isn't everyone interested in building a retirement and like having wealth?
No. They
go to work every single day to have money.
Yeah, keep it simple. I don't need to think. I don't need to take risk or buy something or build something or work that hard. Like, not everybody wants to make $1 billion like you to give it away. A lot of people just want to live life, enjoy.
I think everyone wants more money though. So
they do want more money, but what do you want to do to get it? Right?
Yeah.
What kind of risk are you willing to take?
I don't know. It was interesting though, because the only person who's asked me about it is like younger people usually. Like
that's good.
My younger cousin was asking me about it. He's like, "So how'd you actually do that? Like, how would I do this? How would I do this?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, there you go." And
there's something happening in the younger generation, like the younger, like what, I don't know, is that Gen Z or what, the 20s?
I have no idea.
So I think I don't know what generation. There's something different with. There's a lot more people that are interested in real estate and building wealth now. Yeah. So what do we do? I mean, so it's Trevor and I are going to do an episode here. We're going to talk about kind of maybe the bad things about real estate, like what happens in our day and getting phone calls left and right about things going wrong, money going out when it's not coming in. What do we do for a living?
So we have now money and later money. We do things to make now money. We provide services for now money in the real estate sector. People give us money for things we do for them, essentially.
Brokering deals,
sponsoring
advising,
managing their property for them in your case. Those things. And then we have later money where we're collecting assets to build our balance sheet and create more net worth.
What's a balance sheet?
A piece of paper that says all your assets and liabilities on
all right.
it.
So all the things you have that are worth something minus all the money you owe.
Yeah. So people get really confused because a lot of people we talk to want to build wealth, right? But they think they have to be in the real estate sector to make their now money also. You don't need to be. It's nice for us because now you can cross over some things and they work synergistically. But like most people can just go make money and you can invest in real estate. You don't need to make money in real estate to invest in real estate. But that's what we do. Does that answer your question?
So the two things don't have to line up. You could be making really good now money doing whatever
business.
You're doing.
Yeah, you could get a job that gives you $1 million a year and invest in deals.
I know somebody that does. Yeah, and then you could be like, okay, I got some money. I can go put it in a deal, or I can invest in my off time.
Mm-hmm. So, but it's figuring out how you're going to make your now money, right? And then how you're making your later money. And early on, I only thought about later money ever. Which is the wrong order probably to do that in. I was figuring out how to invest when I had nothing to invest, which was cool.
Delayed gratification guy?
Yeah. So like that was the whole thing. I was thinking 10 years out, day one, when I started investing.
That's what's different about you than other people, especially young people, is most people just want instant gratification.
Yeah. Had I flipped it around, I think the best way to probably do it, knowing what I know now, is figure out how to make more now money first, and then investing it is way easier. Because then you don't got to think about it. You just invest it in all sorts of
One of the things, though, is you have the instinct, like a Paul Curley instinct, that you need to own buildings. Like, that's not very many people have that. So you wanted to do it from a young age.
Yeah, and I was trying to create cash flow at first, and then I flipped that.
To equity?
Yeah. Now I think cash flow is cool.
You still have cash flow. It's just negative.
You know what Mike told me that's pretty funny?
Oh, it's Black Friday today. Maybe you'll go in the positive today. What did Mike tell you?
He was talking about return on equity and how it's like the most important number to like talk about and look at. And he's like, the really cool part about return on equity in a down market is your return on equity just goes up as your building values go down. And I'm like, thinking about it, I'm like, oh, it's just another bullshit metric. Like,
yeah, your building is going down in value now, so it's
your return on equity is going
balancing
up.
Your return on equity. So you don't need to refi and pull any cash out. You don't need to sell and trade into something else. Mm-hmm. Just sit on what you have. It's all working out now. Yeah. No, that is an interesting. It's not a bullshit metric because it is.
It's just a metric.
It's something that as you're doing better and things are going good, you have a new problem to solve, because now you have too much equity and you're not making enough cash on that, and you have to figure out, should I refi to even that equation out, or should I sell this one and trade into something where I'll make more money? Yeah. And it's the reason we get into real estate, because then we have all that equity sitting there and we roll it into something else. And it's funny because you end up building tons and tons of equity and just a little bit of cash flow trickles through. And the reason being is what you're going to talk about right now is you have a week or two like you just had where every day you get a phone call and some catastrophic failure has happened, and it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars you weren't planning on spending.
Yeah, so what we had was we buy a lot of value-add buildings. So 3 or 4 weeks ago, city goes and inspects. We got to do $70,000 in repairs to one building, $50,000 in repairs to another, right? And all this to be done within 30 days or whatever, so you got to go spend all the
So in Salem, we get a 5-year inspection. Once every 5 years, you hit the lottery, your building gets an inspection, and hey, you get to write a check for $120,000.
Like your siding all needs to be painted because there's a piece of peeling paint and blah, 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 whatever it may be.
They're looking at, they're kind of like, they're not really building inspectors, are they? They're just kind of more.
Some random person
goes and looks at your building and tells you what they think your building needs work.
Yeah, so like there was one, I think we bought, and they, like, the tenants, we buy all these messed up buildings and we fix them up over time. It's not always right away. These people like built out in their house, like turned the garage into an extra bedroom in some large units we had. So we had to pay to go remove all of the stuff that all of them did, right? And now all the tenants are pissed because they
don't have that third bedroom.
They don't have that third bedroom that they wanted, and someone like rented to them as a 3-bedroom. So now they're like, "Why I don't want this rent rate?"
Prior to when we bought the property.
Yeah, prior to when we bought, and now it's like we got to go solve the problem.
So somebody called it a third bedroom, and it wasn't a legal bedroom. Didn't have egress, didn't have a window.
Yeah,
closet, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so there's all that stuff. So it's like, okay, we got to write these checks. It's whatever. We write the checks. Then the next week, what was the next thing that happened?
Well, we had a problem with like raw sewage underneath.
Oh yeah, that was the next one. So then we found out we paid to have all this stuff remediated. The company never actually came out and remediated. That's on us. We didn't double check it. Our mistake. But it was sitting, or it was they fixed it, didn't fix it properly. We didn't reinspect it. Whatever the problem was.
What should we have done differently? Go crawl under there ourselves?
We should have sent someone to and check
to go look
out in the back end. Yeah.
So we had somebody take our money. It was a lot of money too, like 40,000, 50,000 or something.
Yeah, it's like 30. Yeah.
Okay.
For that specific
one
that they didn't do. They just took the money and didn't do the work.
Didn't do it.
Yeah, they didn't
at all.
Yeah, it's on us. Like We should have double checked.
Luckily, they just wrote us a check back.
They wrote the check. So then eventually they're like, okay, we'll go do the work. Then they did it wrong over and over / didn't do it. And then it caused all these problems. So then we got to go spend more money, right? You got to go fix that. So there's some money spent there.
So what was the problem on the building? It had plumbing leaks?
It had a plumbing leak that was... I don't know exactly, Jordan.
Gray water.
Gray water. It was something
filled up the crawl.
Fairly minor, like easy enough to fix. But so you just spend money, right? And it's fixed. Could have spent money the first time, re-inspected it, or now you got to spend an extra $5,000 because you got to cost more, whatever it may be.
So was this a mistake in hiring the cheapest vendor again and them not doing a good job?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, we run into that.
That's biggest lesson is don't hire the cheapest. Like now I just call Jaron or Chad and I say, who should I have?
Who can we trust? Who would do a good job?
All about trust.
Give us a reasonable price.
Yeah, like I just need to be within reason. I overpay a little bit. I underpay a little bit, whatever. Like I want it done right and then it's done. I don't think about it. That's what we do now. But we were picking, right? We were picking the cheapest people and then it was just being done wrong and then you got to redo it. Now you're paying double. So, and I think that a lot of beginners make that mistake, or house flippers.
Sure.
And now in the commercial space, it all has to be permitted, and like if you don't permit it, and they find out you didn't permit, now you got to tear it all off, and now, it's a problem.
Yep.
So just pick the better people, pay more. But
how are you feeling when you were getting these phone calls?
The one for the city one we were expecting, right? So that's fine. Now the sewage one, you got to do another check. And you're like, that sucks. And then where it sucks is when it starts compound. So then the next one was our parking lot flooded or something. And then it's you got to send an emergency crew. We had to send an emergency crew to go pump it or do something like that.
Clear the drain.
Yeah. And then on another one, so now on one of our buildings, the roof started leaking. And then it was flooding into the unit and causing a bunch of problems for them because the roof's leaking. So now it's like, oh shit, we got to go fix that. And then the roof right next to it started leaking 2 days later. So now you got to go replace 2 whole roofs. You got to do that, do all those city inspections. So all the money I had coming in, week after week, as I was having money come in. So now I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to be sitting on a good chunk of cash right now, building up the reserve, and then it all goes out. And this has happened every time I've had big chunks of money come in. It always goes out.
You got to relax around the money. Yeah, Paul always says that there's a magical way that when you get a big hit, by the time it lands, it's already all spent.
Mm-hmm.
So you're feeling like you're going to have a big reserve and then all this is going out. Like, are you ever thinking in there like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, this sucks.
No, I've done it multiple times now. So yeah, you're like, it sucks, but I don't think about it that much because my thought process right now is I just need to figure out how to make so much money that this doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's the solution.
Sure.
I think I'm working on solving that, so then I'm less worried about. I'm like, okay, I just need to speed this up on the front end because if I had to do that every single month, now that's not sustainable. And also, that's like we knew that stuff was coming. You're adding value to the buildings. Eventually, they're stable. That stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes you get surprised. We live in Oregon, so you have weather. The seasons change, and so sometimes you go through summer, and you're not thinking about that roof that maybe needed to be done until it starts pouring down rain again. We get a heavy rain, and you're like, oops, we had one roof we probably knew we needed to do at some point, but we put it off.
Well, I think when we were buying those, we were using not the best inspectors and things and like not planning it out as well as we would now.
I thought we had I thought some of those roofs were better than they were when we bought them. So I don't know. Maybe they weren't as good as what we were thinking.
I think part of that is operations on the back end. So doing things like continual maintenance and check-ins and things, which like now having Mark, it's like, okay, we want Mark to do that stuff, which is great.
So we talk about OpEx and CapEx. Like what is this? This is kind of a combo. Like a roof is CapEx, capital improvement.
Yeah.
So it means it's going to show up on your...
But we can bake all that into the front end of a deal and estimate when we're going to do it.
Yeah, and CapEx, like you're going to do your roof once every 20 years or whatever. It's not going to happen all the time. So you get to put it on your depreciation schedule and write it off on your tax return over time if you want. Or you could call it OpEx if you wanted and just write it off in 1 year, which is what a lot of people do. But then you don't get to write it off over time. So OpEx is like your sewage underneath the building. Like you're not improving the building. It's just, oops, we had a plumbing leak.
Yeah.
We had to get people underneath there to put on their hazmat suits and throw their kitty litter under there or whatever they do and scrape it all out and put in vapor barrier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, buildings, there's kind of a lot that goes into a building.
Yeah, I don't really like buildings. They just fall apart continually.
There's roof systems, there's crawl systems, there's There's HVAC and plumbing and electrical and wrought and siding and some windows. We had another building recently. It needs all new windows. It just happens.
Me and you?
No, I think it's a building you sold me, actually.
What building? A fourplex?
Yeah.
Oh, you have to do all new windows?
Yeah, the one you sold me, it's draining me. It's cost me more than our big projects.
No shot.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it needs everything.
No.
It's horrible. Worst building I ever bought.
Yeah, oh, you're fucking with me. Do you actually have to do all new windows?
No, I think it is actually the worst building I ever bought. I've never seen it before, so I can't tell you. But
it'll be pretty nice when you're done with it.
Our manager can't rent it because she says it's too ugly. It's too messed up. It needs work. I don't know.
I'll buy it back from you.
I might have to sell it for twice as much now with how much money we put into it.
Sounds like a good deal to me.
I buy buildings and I'm excited to buy them, and usually after I buy them, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, this thing needs this, it needs that. It's the stabilization process. It's just the property, whether you built it brand new or you bought a value add, there's still there's a part of that deal where it's just going to cost money for a while. And sometimes it's 6 months or a year, and sometimes it's 2 or 3 years. And, it is what it is. It's just part of the fun. It's part of playing the game. And if you're not okay writing checks, don't play the value add game. Go buy cash flowing turnkey assets, and good luck finding them.
Well, you could do that still. You just have to get creative with the houses.
Houses?
Well, you can go rent out by the room, and you can cash flow on a 7% rate.
Or you can go to other markets.
Or you can, I don't know how to do that really, but
you could do it.
I could, yeah. Anyway, so we want to talk, though. You have money. You have the same thing where you just constantly deal with money coming and going, right? So how do you
every day
relax around it?
I don't.
Oh.
Well, I try. I don't immediately when it happens. I mean, it depends on what it is. Like when you were talking about having to call in emergency crews to do the parking lot and all that, it wasn't a very big bill.
I don't know what it costs.
I think
Did you see it?
A couple $1,000 or something. I don't. It wasn't. Oh. I mean, it was like, but when I get the city bill and it's 77,000 or whatever, that one is kind of not as exciting. But typically, just as an overarching goal, like we're trying to bring money in and build up reserves, and there are times where the money just is very, very hard to bring in, and it's very, very easy to spend. And then there are you go in waves where the money starts to roll in and you start to build up like you were just talking about. But usually when that money starts to stack up is when you know you're going to be writing checks again. It's going to go. Like, you have to relax around the fact that you're not just going to keep stacking money all the time.
So that's the good thing about bad times, but the bad thing about good times, because they both end.
They all end.
They all end, yes.
Different seasons. Yeah, you got to find, I mean, it's nice if you, at the end of the day, if you were able to bring in a little more than you spent each time. But if you're doing this to stack dollars in your bank account, you better stop buying buildings for a while and let things stabilize and hit cruise control, because if you keep buying buildings and you're in growth mode the way we do, you're always in a constant state of running out of cash.
Depending on what deal structure you do. So we could do it and raise enough and have a reserve, and then you can...
Yeah, but then you're not going to be giving your investors the return they're looking for.
So there's pros and cons to doing it different ways, and we'll do it more aggressively, just us.
With our own money. That's one thing I will say is I'm a lot more aggressive with my own money because I'm willing to lose my own money than other people's money. When we do a raise, it's got to be a 99.9% sure bet, and it's got to have a lot of margin in it. I'm not comfortable doing value add with investor money because things just go wrong. It's like doing a flip, I mean, you just don't know what you got sometimes until you own it.
Yeah. So do you try to just increase your income too then? Or what do you do?
I mean, yeah, there's so many moving parts in my day that it's honestly, it's bigger than I am. I've kind of let go of it for the most part. I have a lot of great people in place, and I spend a lot of time supporting them and helping them run their departments. And I mean, it's hard to track. Like, if in my brain I would love to say I know what's coming in, I know what's going out, but I don't. There's too many moving parts. So I just try to give myself up, try to let go of control and relax and just make the best decisions that I can make.
When you say it's too hard to track, like you mean all the businesses, all the assets, you don't have like a master accounting of...
I tried to do a master accounting. I paid my CPA a lot of money to do this every month, and they called me a while back and said, you buy too much real estate. We can't keep track of all this. Like, even they can't keep track of it.
I think you could pay someone to do it pretty easy.
I could hire a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Or somebody. Actually, what's happened is, I don't know. I can read my owner statements. It's just it would be nice to
So I think you get someone to take all your owner statements plus all your other business and compile them into a master sheet that you can see the high level.
It just doesn't, you can see the high level. It just doesn't tell me much.
It tells you what to go dig into further. So you can see,
but your owner statements do that.
Yeah, but you want to see, okay, month over month what's going. Okay, what happened this month? Then I go look a little more detailed, and then I figure out the problem.
What I tend to do is I follow the total collections across the top line.
Yeah.
And I like to read 12-month reporting so that I can see
the
trend line for the last 12 months.
Sure.
And then I'll look at kind of just total expense. And if the expense line is out of whack, I'll go back in and dig in a little closer to see where that came from. Mm-hmm. And then I'll track NOI. I mean, that's really ultimately what you're trying to get to is what's your net. And then I like to see the rent rolls and how much vacancy we have and how long they've been vacant and what they're renting at, what they're trying to rent them for. And so, I mean, to me, you can run most properties and even in acquisitions, really all I'm interested in is the rent roll. Like the rent roll to me is everything I need to know how to buy a deal and run a deal. Because I know, what things are renting at. I know how long they've been sitting there. You can make a lot of decisions based on your rent roll.
But you have the most effect over operations, don't you?
Well, I mean, so a lot of your expense lines are it's stuff you don't have a lot of control over. You can try to find ways to lower your expenses, and especially when you're buying a deal. It's one of the reasons I don't underwrite to a seller's expense line usually.
Yeah, you know how you're going to operate.
Yeah, it's either they run it like shit or they are lying to me about some expenses that aren't in there, right? And so I know how I want to run the property. And so I underwrite to their rent roll based off of my expense line. And I may not, I have to look up their taxes or maybe get a bid on insurance. And there are some things in there that are just not going to be the same too. Like insurance is a great example. If they have an insurance policy that's been on it for 4 or 5 years, it's not going to be the same rate that I pay brand new owner coming in to buy this property. It's probably going to be double in today's market. So There are some things you just can't fall back. Like trailing data will only tell you so much. And then you got to use your brain. Mm-hmm.
So when you have money coming and going, you've had the biggest jumps in your income over time have came out of desperation and having to have them, correct?
Mostly, yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. So to give people don't know your backstory still to even listen to this, because someone was asking me like, oh yeah, Gabe was just given all his money from his dad having the car dealership. So people for reference, Gabe was poor, sharing a Prius with his wife, and Jan was supporting you for a minute, right?
Yeah. When I met Jan, I had so I was making decent money, but I had so much money in child support and alimony and all this.
You had like $500 left over or something.
I had less than that, I think, every month. So in those days, I think I made $84,000 a year. Was my salary, and at the end when I got my paycheck and everything was taken out, I had about $300, and so that's what I could contribute each month was about $300. I had to live on $300.
Yeah, so you figured out how to go and build all this with nothing.
Yeah.
So like for people,
when my dad sold the dealership, I was supposed to get a percentage of it, and it didn't all go down the way it was supposed to go down, and I ended up getting about $15,000 or $20,000 out of the sale of that dealership.
Nothing.
And I used that to buy Jan's gym equipment and the things that she used to run her business. And we lived on her business when she started Live Wellness, so that I could go start my real estate career.
Yeah, so I can't. It was someone who knew you fairly well. Too,
we for 4 years we lived in her business and shared a Prius with 200,000 miles on it. We had one car. Yeah. This is from 2009. Oh no, we sold the dealership in 2011. So this is like 2011 to 2015 ish. We were sharing one car and living in her business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people assume that you were just given the dollars. But
Well, that's okay. I mean, I don't care.
no, it was just funny because it was someone we were like friends with, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Gabe was doing this and he bought all this." And I was like, "Oh, that's not how that happened."
Yeah, I mean, if that's how they want to figure it out in their brains, that's that's an easier story for people to believe, honestly. It's not what happened, but when I was working for my dad in the car business, everybody thought that I was just a spoiled rich kid, which I might have been spoiled, but I definitely wasn't rich. I got to drive cool cars, and I got to work for my dad for 20 years, which was hard. And in the end, I ran his business. I mean, I was the one running it. And so I think I kind of had a chip on my shoulder a little bit. I mean, everybody thought I was the spoiled rich kid, which okay, fine, I'll play that off. Like, it doesn't really bother me that people think that. But then when I left the car business, the people that I used to work with in the car business that see what I do now, it blows them away. Because in their mind, they had that same thing you're talking about. Like, oh, he's, spoiled rich kid, dad gave him everything, whatever. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just in that seat because it was handed to him.
Yeah.
So when I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, I wanted to go out and prove to people, like, I got what it takes. My dad didn't just hand it to me. And so I've gone out and done multiples of what my dad did. But, all on the lessons that he taught me. It's nothing bad that he did. I learned a lot being in the car business for 20 years and getting to work with my dad. It was a hard thing to do, but it was also a special opportunity that not everybody gets to do.
You got to manage people and learn how to sell.
Yeah. I got to learn sales and marketing and people and all the things that I know today that help me do what I do come from the car business. Mm-hmm. It didn't come from real estate.
Yeah, but you ran into problems where I was going with this. If a bunch of money going out, you weren't making enough money to cover it. When first time flipping houses, that was the first time, right?
Yeah.
Or did you have it before then in a smaller scale?
No, I had never flipped before. I got into real estate in 2012. I bought my first deal about 3 years later. So it was about, I'm just coming up. Actually, this is right about my 10-year anniversary. I saw on Facebook the other day a picture of me painting one of my duplexes.
Oh, you sent it to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been 10 years. I've been an investor for 10 years. I've owned SMI real estate. This next year will be my 10th year. So I've owned SMI real estate for 9 years. So I became an investor 10 years ago.
And you became a broker 13 years ago?
I became a broker 13 years ago-ish.
Yeah.
And then I've owned the brokerage for 9 years. And then I didn't get into property management until 4 years ago. So that's the timeline. So really everything happened over the last decade. But like even when I was out buying deals, like at one point I owned 17 doors, and I still lived in Jan's business, and we still shared a Prius with 200,000 miles.
I think you have to do it longer than people think, because now you can take on more risk on the upside if you decrease your lifestyle.
Well, I was trying to become a broker, and so I didn't have regular income.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to build up, like you and everybody, I wanted to build up a little bit of passive income stream, so I didn't feel like I was going to be homeless every day. Like I wanted to have a little base. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to build up a base of $5,000 a month in passive income so I could go out,
take more risk
and broker and do whatever. And so I don't know what order it all went in, but ultimately what happened is I got the brokerage, and in 2016, I was starting to have some success, and I was brokering deals. I've been brokering deals for a few years now, and I own the company. And so now I was like, okay, I got to keep brokering, and I got to build the brokerage, and I want to be investing, but I need to create some passive income streams. And so it might be shiny object, or it might just be survival. I went out and I said, well, one way I could do this was flipping houses.
Passive income streams, and then you decided to flip houses.
Well, so I'm a partner guy. Yeah. And so there's an episode, you can go back and listen to episode 4 where I tell my whole story. I think it's 4 or 5. And so I thought, well, I'll go flip houses. I can make an extra couple $100,000 a year flipping houses. And I went and I found the friend of mine who was out flipping houses.
Yeah.
And then two friends of mine, actually, and we got into business together, and we decided to flip houses. And it went miserably horrible.
So that was the first experience, though, where you had more money going out than coming in?
Well,
or had you bought buildings before that bleed, and you were like, "Oh, I got to."
Yeah, I mean, when I bought my first duplex,
you had to write some checks, and
I had to write some checks. I wasn't very happy about that in the beginning. It wasn't very fun.
It grew. So each time, had you done that multiple times, and then it just became bigger and bigger checks?
Well, it got to the point where I had signed my name on to, like $6 or $7 million worth of debt with the flipping, and so I had just in interest only payments, I was paying $50,000 a month.
Personally, or between the partnership?
Well, my partnership, the money partner decided he wasn't going to write checks anymore, and the other partner had no money. So it was up to me, and it was all the loans were in my name somehow. I don't know how that worked, but somehow I ended up with all that debt in my name.
Okay, so that's when you had to first learn how to make more money to solve that problem, and that's when you became number
so I just kept. Luckily for me, during that same time, so here was me not having the faith that I'd be able to pull it off. So I was going to go set up this extra income stream, and while I set up this extra income stream, I go out and I start brokering a high volume of business, and I'm bringing in quite a bit of money. And so,
and then you're just writing checks to your.
Yeah, the money's I'm closing deals, and I'm making money, and then I'm feeding this business. And so, I don't know. I solved a $7 million problem when I had no money, but all those the first millions that I ever made went to pay for this failing enterprise where we went out to flip. I never had a foreclosure, never had a repo.
Were you brokering a lot of deals before that or not?
I was doing a fair amount of business. I think I would be considered a successful broker at that time, but
you had to crank it.
I was making $300,000-$400,000 a year before I got to that point. Once I got to that point where I felt that pain, I had to become a 7-figure earner. I wasn't going to be able to keep. I was just going to get foreclosed on and lose everything. So it was just,
out of necessity then. So it forced you to.
Yeah. I don't know if I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go. I don't know what the calculation was in my brain of how much money I had to make. I just knew that I knew that I could make money in brokering because I was good at it. And I knew that we had set up a failing partnership that was losing a ton of money in flipping. And I knew I had to get my way out of it. And so just like you just said a minute ago, you said, you think you got to make a lot more money so that when these problems arise, you can handle them, right? And so that's the answer. And Grant Cardone talks about that. He always talks about how you don't have an expense problem. You always have an income problem. It's not that everybody always tries to figure out how to get rich by cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, and that's not the answer. The answer is you have to figure out how to maximize your earning potential.
He says he invests 100. He spends 100% of his money every time, so he has zero.
Yeah, his whole stay broke thing, and you stay broke when you're buying helicopters and $1 million watches. But
he said so. His whole model is I don't buy that stuff though off my active income. I invest 100% of my active income.
Yeah, the rule is you got to buy it with passive income, and you have to have enough in cash to buy it twice. And you have to buy it with cash. You don't finance it. So if you want to buy $1 million watch,
$2 million,
you got to have $2 million in cash that you stacked up from passive income that just blow it on whatever you want to blow it on, and now you can go buy your $1 million watch. Mm-hmm.
So going back to relaxing around money in that phase of your life, so you figured out how to make more money. Did you run into that problem again when you were having to grow SMI brokerage or anything to make more again?
I don't know that I've ever actually. I've made a lot more money and spent a lot more money, and I've lost money. I've had other things that we lost money on, but that was my big one. That I think for me, what it did was it expanded my mind to know that $1 million wasn't as much as I thought it was. Everybody kind of throws that word around. I'm going to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. Everybody thinks like $1 million is some magical, huge amount of money. And it's really not. $1 million is not that much money. It's definitely not enough to retire on. It's definitely not enough to, I'm not saying it because I'm looking down on anybody that doesn't have $1 million. I'm just saying if you think that the $1 million is going to solve all of life's problems, it's probably not. So, I'm constantly in a state of trying to raise capital.
Are you trying to increase earnings still right now?
Yeah. Yes.
Actively thinking, how do I make more and where do I focus my time to make it?
Yep.
So what do you think? How do you do
Well, so I'm all in on my businesses, and that's my now money. So building the management company and the brokerage has been my primary focus. I don't get shiny object and run off and play with Bitcoin and do other things. That's just not who I am. So
when you try to make more money with the brokerage and management company, do you tell your staff we need to make more money, go figure it out, or do you build?
That's part of it. I mean, part of it is trying to support our brokers and helping them find more deals, helping train them so that they're better at finding and winning deals and getting deals to the finish line. And
do you think you would make more money because the property would? Is it better of the brokerage or the property management company, or do they work synergistically?
They kind of work together, but the interesting thing about management is it's more steady. And so you have steady income that comes from that. It gives me a base, but I'm trying to grow it. And the problem is it costs money to grow. And so in both companies, we're trying to grow, and you're just always spending money to try to get there.
You're trying to grow the brokerage also?
Trying to grow both, yeah.
How are you growing the brokerage?
Well, we just brought on a lot of brokers. I mean, we're
Does that make you more?
It will when we start doing more deals. I mean, we're doing deals, but it's still a very low
Aren't you
volume.
bringing on resi brokers though?
We're doing both. We're
they
building.
Don't make you money, do they?
You can make some money. It's not a huge
because they cap
maker.
on the.
Yeah. The residential game is not as profitable as a commercial game. Yeah. And ultimately, for me, the brokerage is the whole thing, really. The end goal is to own more buildings. For me, I want to own more buildings. I want our staff and brokers to own more buildings. I want our clients to own more buildings.
So couldn't you bring in, you want to bring in as many brokers as possible and then train them as well as possible?
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of a point you hit where I think what do you call like a saturation point where I think you start to lose some of the magic. So we don't want to be the biggest brokerage and we don't want to be the biggest management company. We just want to be the best.
You want to do the most deals though.
I want to be the best. I want to do I want to do excellent work. I want to provide an excellent service and I want to do a really good job and I want our people to be happy. I want to, I don't want to grow for the sake of growing. I want us to grow organically because we do a really good job. So the goal is always in excellence. It's not in growth.
Do you think you could bring in brokers and then put them through because you give training and you give your time, but it's not like a focused, organized, structured system. Do you think you could be like, here's an 8-week course when you sign up and here's how you broker the deals and do the deals and then they'll do more deals? Sure.
I think that's how the big dogs do it. I try to be a little more personalized and one-on-one, and I think everybody has different goals. And so, I mean, if you want to go to a big shop where they're going to put you through a 6-week course, they're just going to teach you how to cold call. They're going to teach you how to find leads and stuff like that. It's not going to teach you to use your mind and to figure out why people want to own real estate and why you should own real estate.
But you could teach that.
I could teach that. Yeah. And I kind of do with them one-on-one, and we do our boom meeting every month where, we have an educational time where we talk, people can ask questions.
Because I wanted to do this as a more structured thing because you give so much value, but people don't know how to ask you the question to take the value that you're offering.
I think that's what we're doing here on this podcast, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but we're forcing them. So you're giving it to them in the way of here's the value, right? They listen to it, they show up, they listen to it, right? So like someone to get value from you at your brokerage has to be like, Gabe, let me go to lunch with you and sit there.
Or come to a boom meeting, or listen to the podcast or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things.
But if
meetups.
You made it more structured and you were like, here's 8 weeks of time and I'm going to tell you all these things. Now you're forcing value upon them that they didn't even know how to ask for.
So then what do? Only hire brokers once a year and run an 8-week course where I take 2 months off and teach them, or what?
Well, I mean, it would be an hour once a week for 8 weeks.
8 weeks. So it's an 8-hour course.
Yeah, and you could cycle it every quarter you're doing it, and like people could hop in at different phases. You don't that doesn't need to be you have to learn step 1 to get to step 8. It could be synergistic.
No, I like the way you think. You're an engineer and I'm not. I'm a car salesman. So I love the idea of organizing the training. That's one of the reasons we do the boom meeting is because, instead of running around to 45 brokers and trying to teach them the same thing, they want to show up and we sit in the room together. And I think a lot
it does. I think if you had more structure around that meeting, then more people would come and more deals would happen too.
All right. Well, I want feedback, but nobody ever gives me feedback.
I was thinking about the other day, so that's why I tried to do that deal live, because I was like, why are we not doing it? We should be able to do a deal now.
Yeah.
I
mean, we've done a lot of deals.
No, we have, but I think you can do even more because, But anyway, how would you make whatever amount you make, how would you double, what would you have to do to double your income in each of those businesses?
It's not really that hard. some of it comes down to market cycles. So, the brokerage will make double just as the market comes back.
Okay, what would you have to do to 10x?
To 10x, I would probably have to focus more on other markets. I would have to expand a little further into Portland and maybe into Washington a little more. And I don't know. I mean, I think it comes down to, you sort of just get to the point where you have too many brokers in one place and it dilutes the value. That's how I feel anyway. I know there's some brokerages around that we compete with that have hundreds of brokers, especially in the residential world. And it just feels to me like it loses its value. Like right now, I'm trying to build a brand where it's like if you are at SMI, it means something. Whereas I feel like some brokerages, you're there and it's like, yeah, of course you're there because 1,000 people.
You have a unique value proposition of you will buy more deals if you're here because we're all buying deals.
Yeah, we're a collective, like you were talking about. We're a group, we're a community of people who not only want to broker deals for now money, we also want to own buildings. And I promote it, whereas most brokerages
they don't want you to.
Well, or they don't know what it means. They're not into it themselves to invest, and so they don't promote that. And some others maybe are, and they want their people to keep their head down and go do deals so they can go buy more real estate, which I think is awful. That's not okay with me. So I want to help everybody own more buildings.
Would you be interested in trying to 10x what you're doing now? Or?
Maybe. I mean, it's 10x sounds like a lot. Sure. I mean, it depends on what it takes away from my life. I'm pretty happy with how things are going. And there are, like even when we talk about our asset group expanding and growing, like I'm having a lot of fun now in the beginning stages, but I can already see where it all goes. It becomes a real business at some point with, a 9 to 5 and an office and people and it's serious. It gets real serious as it gets bigger. I had this happen. I started for fun. I started a food manufacturing company with my wife, Jan, and we did this just because, shiny object syndrome. I'm walking through the grocery store and I'm like, hey, how do these companies get a package on the shelf? And it's just out of curiosity. Oh, well, we could do that. We could make something and put it on the shelf. So we did it, and she made it in Salem, Oregon, and it ended up, we got into some grocery stores with this. It was called Live Bar. And, how do you get it into the other stores, and how do you get distribution, and how do you hire brokers, and how do you go national, and blah, blah, blah. And it just went from one thing to the next, and it ended up becoming a 50-state brand that was in multiple countries. We had 50 brokers peddling the bar to different distributors. We had 7 channels of distribution. It became this thing. We had 45 employees in a 15,000 square foot manufacturing facility wearing the white coats and the things, and it was like when Mr. Rogers shows you behind the scenes on how a company runs, Oh, we go into the factory and they're making these things, and we had an assembly line, and we're buying tens of thousands of pounds of all these ingredients and all this crap. We had ingredients floor to ceiling and forklifts and the whole. I mean, it turned into this crazy thing. Mm-hmm. Well, in the beginning, when we started, it was fun. It was like, oh, we make these little bars and we show up and we hand them out and we tell people about them and we get into these grocery stores, and we weren't making any money, but it was fun. Then it turns into a real business, and it's like, oh, we have people's lives depend on this. Like,
that's not fun at that point.
We have payroll and we have I mean, for me, it would have been more fun if I was not involved day to day. We had hired a CEO to run it, and we did fundraising. We raised $6 million. We did all this stuff, and for me, it was just I was not involved in the day to day, and it was just I was not willing to set aside everything in my life to go do that and bank my whole future on that being our thing. There are people all over the place that build billion-dollar companies that way, and that's just their whole thing. But all it is a constant burn of cash. So you just constantly fundraise, and you constantly burn cash until you grow to a certain level.
Well, that's one model. That's not the only way, right? You can have
in that business, that's about the only way you can get to the level you need to, and then you get picked up by another company, and they buy you, and then they 10x you. and they get the big payout at the end. So they would come in once we're hitting, say, $5 million. They would come in, and maybe at that point we have a $100 million company or whatever it is, and so we get stock options, we get cash, we get whatever, and these bigger dogs will come in and they'll just like we buy a value add building.
Yeah,
they buy a value add company.
You've done the work on the front.
We did all the blood, sweat, and tears to build the brand, to build the product and everything.
Now they plug in,
and they just come in and they just suck you up for $100 million, and they plug you into their system, and then 2 years later they sell you for $1 billion or $10 billion or whatever it is, and they make the big hit. They come out the other side with a huge hit, and they go out and they just swallow up these other small companies again. So that's why every small company, especially in the food world, ends up being owned by one of the three major food manufacturers in the world, because it's almost like a monopoly, but there's like three of them instead of one of them.
Yeah.
And they own everything. Like you just look at their brands, and each of them own hundreds of brands.
That's like the S&P too? Isn't 51% of the S&P owned by like
by one
or something?
One group? Yeah. So everything ends up getting consolidated. And so anyway, I mean, the point I was getting at is like, the scale is fun to think about, but once it becomes very serious and very real, the SMI companies are very serious and very real, but I feel like it's a lot of fun and I enjoy it. It's it's what I want to be doing. Like the food bar thing was like it's not it wasn't my whole mission in life. I was just like, hey, what if? Like, could
What's
we
your
do
mission
this?
In life right now?
To have fun and make friends.
Okay. Yeah.
The food business was not fun. I did not have fun. I did not make friends. I have fun in real estate. This is fun.
Yeah.
We were trying to talk about what we did every day. Like, what do we do for a living? Now money, tomorrow money. Did we answer the question?
I'm not sure if we did there. We talked about things that go wrong, how money comes and goes, how you got to relax around money.
The money does come, and the thing is when you want to go big, like you want to go, it just takes so much cash. I mean, people talk about, oh yeah, we want a cash flowing model as we go. Well, you just can't grow at the exponential pace that you want to grow at without. You got to raise money, and
You told me last time acquisitions was the problem, not raising the money.
It's not. I mean, raising money is not the problem. It's just you have to decide if you can sleep at night. Like when you have that much on the line, when you've raised that much money, and you're like, to me, taking $6 million and putting it into a building project, we have a building. The building we might make less or make more, whatever. As long as we get the building built. Everybody's going to be okay. When you raise $6 million to go into some random food product that's going to go into the world,
yeah, if you're doing that,
it's a binary investment. It's not like, oh, I put in $100K and I might get $200K, or I might only get $100K, or I might only get $50K. But like, I'm going to get something back because there's still a building.
Yeah, with a startup thing like that, you're all or nothing type of thing.
It's you're going to hit that $100,000 going to turn into $1 million, or it's going to turn into zero.
Yeah.
That's it. And I mean, it's like if you're on the craps table at the casino, you can bet on 6 or 8, and you have a 1 to 1.1 odds that it's going to land on 6 or 8 because the number that rolls the most is 7, right? And so people bet on 6 or 8. It's like you can stand there and you win, you lose, and you win and you lose, and you win and you lose. Like to go out and do business, you're going to go to the edge of that craps table. You're going to be betting on 4s and 10s that don't hit as often, where it's much more likely you're going to have a failure and roll a 7 than land on a 4 or 10, but you get a much bigger payout if you're betting on 4 and 10. You're gambling now rather than being a very conservative gambler.
Phase of a business too, and all that.
Oh, sure, and I think that's why these groups come in and they say we'll bet our $100 million on a company who hits $5 million in revenue
because they've done it before.
They've already gotten to a point where we know it's not going to fail. It's big enough now to where it's shown that it's on the upward trajectory. We go around and we cherry pick the products that we like the best. We pull those out and we go and 10x them. So you can't really 10x a building, but you could 10x a portfolio by buying a lot more deals. But there's big dogs. Now you get into the institutional, same conversation we just had in the last episode. You become an institutional.
I think
investor.
you should think how you should 10x SMI, property management and brokerage.
Okay.
Grant Cardone started buying stuff at your age right now.
Yeah. Buying what? Built more businesses. I've been buying businesses.
Yeah, you're ahead of where he's at.
Yeah.
At that time.
That's how I got here. I mean, I didn't start the most successful businesses I've ever been part of that I own. I didn't start them. I bought them.
Yeah, you get to skip all the beginning.
Yeah, think of my predecessors. They spent 30 plus years.
That's what I'm learning now.
Blood, sweat, and tears to build what they built. And then they decided to retire.
But they were trying to. So the difference there is their goal was to just do that one thing, and they weren't thinking that big. Versus other people are thinking like I'm thinking, I want to learn this skill set to apply again. Like, I don't care about this thing.
They wanted to retire. Everything they built, like you talked about, everybody would love to retire. Their businesses and their portfolio, they built specifically to retire. And when they were 60 years old, they retired, and they live an amazing retirement. They make plenty of money, and they enjoy their life, and they decided that's what they wanted. They didn't want to work their whole life. You may not be that person. I may not be that person. I can tell you that, going back to when I was 40, and now I just turned 49. Like when I was 40, I was like, I'm going to run at 200 miles an hour the rest of my life because I love this and I'm having fun. Now I'm 49 and I'm like, I might slow it down a little bit. I don't know that I'll retire, but I may not push as hard as I am pushing right now or that I was pushing before.
You just need more leverage.
Well, I'm leveraging you.
Yeah.
I bring in the young guns because you got all the energy and you want to go push harder. And so now I don't have to push as hard.
Yeah, but if you just have more leverage of more people, then you can make a bigger
absolutely
impact because now you have the experience from the.
But at what level is it not fun anymore? That's the point. Like if you're still having fun doing it, it'll give you the energy to keep going. And if it's not fun, why are you doing it? I mean, I think if you're making a ton of money, it's fun. I think almost anything you do, if you make a ton of money, it's fun.
I don't know.
We'll find out. I don't know. I guess we've never made a ton of money. At least we don't think so. The money I make today, I used to think was a ton of money. Now it's not a ton of money anymore.
Yeah, that's funny looking back at it.
My brain has adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
So I make more than I ever dreamed that I would want to make, but it's not enough.
I'll make more in one deal than you probably ever thought you would make.
Yeah, it's just not enough. There isn't enough. Like there's never going to be enough. So, I mean, okay, so you just keep going. And once you decide like, okay, it's fine. I'm pretty content. I got what I want. I help people. I have fun. I do what I want. Like to me, it's more important about having fun. I think that's what I want to do is I want to maximize how much fun I have. And when you're making money, if you make enough money, that does make it more fun. Spending the money is not as fun. Losing the money is not as fun as making the money, for sure. But
all right, so the lesson is relax around money.
Yeah. Make a bunch of now money so you can buy a bunch of buildings that bleed and then use all that money you make to cover the bleed so that one day you can be rich. And then hopefully one day you actually are rich so you can look back and go like, oh, yeah, I remember I drove a Prius with 200,000 miles on it, shared it with my wife for 4 years. And now I can have whatever car I want.
Cool.
All right, I'm going to play this one for my mom so she knows what we do for a living now.
There you go.
All right, guys. Are we wrapping it up?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening. We're the Deal Junkies. You're the Deal Junkies. Go out and do some deals. If you have a deal you want to do and you just don't know how to put it together, give us a call. We'll help you do the deal. We'll do the deal with you. So we're excited. We're ready to do deals. The market's coming back. Things are looking really good. We're thankful for coming out of this last couple years that we've been in, and things are looking really, really good for 2025. So thanks again for listening. Please share us, and we will see you next time.